Okay, so hi everybody. Good afternoon. My name is Naa Densua Tordzro from Ghana, but I live in Scotland. I'm a PhD candidate with the College of Arts and Modern Languages, and I also work in the University of Ghana School of Education. My field is in symbols, Adinkra symbols from Ghana and textiles. Kente and printed textiles in Ghana, or what we call African print. But I am into textiles. Yeah, that's my brief background. I also use in my work in academia, I use the arts, that is textiles and symbols, to translate research. So we use, in our work, we use the arts to translate research, um, field research and field work from colleagues who've gone and collected research. Sometimes we are on the field with them as well. So that's what I do briefly.
Brilliant. No, that's great. Thank you. So I think, we have said we're going to take a particular focus today on the Adinkra symbols. Can you tell us just a bit about Adinkra symbols and how they've been used?
So Adinkra symbols originally, we believe historically came from Ivory Coast, what we call Cote d'Ivoire today. History had it that there was a king called King Ankra who had a tussle, a kind of a strength test with the Asante Kingdom, Asante King. And he's been one for years, he's been trying to duplicate the Asante stew, golden stew. And according to history, he was won several times and he didn't listen. So there was a thing between the then Asante king and him, King Ankra, that if he doesn't stop, they will go and have a fight. So whoever wins become a slave to the other. And unfortunately for him, long story short, he lost. So they came as slaves or as prisoners of war and settled in the place in Ghana called German, where all the Adinkra symbol business started. So they were tradesmen, they were weavers, they were how do they call them? They were beauticians, or should I say craftsmen, who came all the way from Ivory Coast to come and settle, or Cote d'Ivoire, I keep saying Ivory Coast, Cote d'Ivoire, to settle in Ghana and started this trade in Ghana. And ever since, we've been using Adinkra symbols in Ghana. In Ghana, Adinkra symbols plays an important role in our lives. As Ghanaians, in our conversations, in everything we do, we use proverbs, we use adage, we advise through proverbs. You can't speak at a short time without putting in a proverb to advise somebody or to make a point. So we always use proverbs and adages and advice in our conversations. And sometimes it is also used as encouragement. For instance, the one you've put up now, Sankofa. Sankofa tells us that there is a future. And it also tells us that when you go back, it's a whole sentence. It says, if you go back to pick what you've left, it is not frowned upon, or there is nothing wrong with going back to pick what you've left behind. But in our context, in this context, we have to look back to where we are coming from to know where we are going. And also, all the time, you have to be mindful of how far you've come and how far you've left whatever it is behind. And then you take the lessons that you've learned from the past to the future, both the mistakes and the good ones. So you know when to not to repeat the same mistakes, or you see it coming when it is coming. So the symbols plays an important role in our society and in our lives as Ghanaians.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Can you tell us then a wee bit about, I realize you've already touched on this, but can you tell us a wee bit about how the symbols highlight different aspects of social and cultural life, as well as, feelings that you kind of want to project through the symbols?
Yeah, so the symbols originally are printed on textiles. They are made for textiles. But when you come to Ghana, everywhere you pass, you see the symbols, mostly on houses. Most people use it to make a statement. And we communicate with what we wear a lot in Ghana. So I come out of my house, the cloth we wear is like an extension of what we want to say. We are communicating in silence. It's like a non-verbal communication. So we dress in a way that when you look at me and you look at the symbols or what the cloth, it may not be a cloth, but it may be a name given to the cloth. So whatever you are wearing could say a lot about what you are feeling at that particular day or what is happening to you. For instance, if I came out of my house wearing black, everybody in the community will know that I'm bereaved. And the black that I am wearing, the way I am wearing the black will tell them whether I am the widow or I am a daughter, or I have lost a husband, or I have lost a mother, or I've lost a sister, depending on how I'm wearing the black. So if I am widowed, there is a way I would dress that everybody will know that she is a widow. If I lose my father, or if I've lost my mom, the way I dress, everybody will know that this person has lost a person. So we communicate with what we wear. And that's just one clear example that most Ghanaians will relate to. And also, when somebody gives birth, what the person who has given birth wears in Ghana is white. So the person comes out, you know that this is just a fresh mom. And if you are going to visit the fresh mom, or if you are the mother or the grandmom, the way you dress also speaks that I'm a grandmom and that you are happy. So we communicate with what we wear a lot. And the symbols plays an important role. If I go to the market, like we were discussing earlier on, if I go to the market and now a shop that is filled with Adinkra cloth, and I have something to say, and I need to pick something that talks to what I'm feeling or what I want to express, I will look through the cloth and pick the Adinkra symbols that are made or that are printed in the cloth that talks to what I want to say and buy and put on. So the symbols in the cloth is what is the message I want to communicate.
Would they often be used to kind of, ignite like conversation with people, or is it really just about sending the message?
It's just sending a message. People who understand the language will look at you and know. They will know what you are trying to say. Like I said to you earlier on, nowadays, people just put it on because it looks beautiful, without paying attention to the meaning of what they are wearing. Last time I had a conversation with a cousin of mine in England, and she's just gone and put on something. So an example, I was bereaved earlier this year. And then in the process of choosing the cloth, we chose a black cloth that had a seat, a stool in it. The stool in the cloth, when it's in the cloth, on its own, we call it ahingwa, right? It's an Adinkra symbol. But when it was printed in the cloth was given a different name for it to sell. So they say that, so the cloth, the name that was given to the cloth was, if you want to talk about me, pick a seat and let's talk, or talk about me. So we not knowing the meaning, the true meaning of the cloth, or whoever chose the cloth, not knowing the meaning of the cloth, thought they picked a cloth, a beautiful black cloth with a Adinkra symbol meaning a stool, ahingwa in it. And that is what was taught. But when I said, this is not, because the elders of the family will read meaning into what you are saying. Because the person who has lost, the person who's lost somebody is lost a husband. And so if the children and relatives around is wearing, so it means that we are sending a message that if there is a conflict in the family, it's like you are trying to say something negative. It's not, so we had to change the cloth to something that will not bring issues in the family. So it depends on what the cloth is representing in a particular situation as well.
So I mean, it sounds like you're very interested, obviously, in like preserving, of course, like this heritage. And is it really important to you then that these meanings aren't lost?
Yes, it is really important to me, because we realize that as it is now, new Adinkra symbols are being created, and more the meaning of these so for instance, the symbol you've put up now is an abstract of the original Adinkra symbol, original Sankofa symbol. The original Sankofa symbol is a bird which head is turned backwards, with like picking of an egg with its beak. So the original symbol you find, but somebody has done an abstract of it, which is what we are seeing on the screen. But the original symbol of Sankofa is a bird with 1 foot forward and 1 foot backwards, with the head turned backwards, picking an egg, or with an egg in its beak. So the egg represents picking of a wisdom or something from the past. It's like it's a mythical bird, we say, picking of something important from the past and carrying it to the future.
It would be great if you could, talk a wee bit more about the Adinkra symbols in relation, to these pieces. I recognise that these were works for an exhibition that was at the University of Glasgow. Was that last year?
No, this year.
This year.
This is one of my collections. This talks about, I call it Befalo. Befalo means the traveler. So in our culture, I work at the project I'm on is called South-South Migration, and it's called MIDEQ. We are looking at the 6 migration corridors, and also how people travel. Most of the time, people assume that people from the south travel mostly to the north, but we found out, research has found out that the traveling that goes on across the south of the equator is more than people coming to the northern part of the equator. So this is an outcome of a research, or my representation of migration. I believe that whenever we are traveling, we carry things from our homes with us. We carry things with us. We take a piece of home with us. And for me, because of the way I was brought up, I came with cloth, I came with music, because I'm a musician as well. I came with cloth, I came with music, I came with fashion, I came with my knowledge in Adinkra symbol. So I carried my family, or I'll say my ancestors, with me to Scotland. And I also believe that wherever you are, the culture influences you, and you also influence the culture. So in a way, my representation of this piece there is looking at Kente. Traditionally, this is not how Kente is worn. Kente is worn with you men throwing the Kente, wrapping it around themselves nicely. So if you go to my collection at the Kelvingrove Museum, you see that at the back of the image, you see a king sitting down with the way they wear the Kente. At the behind of my display at the Kelvingrove Museum. But this one, I'm fusing an European style and looking at the 17th century design of Scottish design and adding a bit of Ghanaian and Ghana design into it. So around the waist, I was looking at our history during the slave trade, where in the north, people go and snatch people and sell them at Salaga market and stuff like that. And so people started building homes where the doors in some part of Ghana, in the north, the doors are so low, you can, before you get in there, if you're not lucky, your head will be chopped off as a slave breeder. So I was looking at how the houses were built and how fences were created around the house. So that brought this, what is sitting on and the base of the skirt looking like a basket. I use the Kente to make a kilt. So even though the Kente, the design in it is called, the female one is called a ban, meaning a protection, like it's like the design, the Kente itself also has a name. So the design in the Kente is called a ban. A ban design is the protection. So it's like a mother. I use it for the woman because most of the time it's seen as women, we protect our family. Even though the men protect us, but we are the immediate protectors of our family because we are always with the kids. We are always there in the house. So I use that design for the woman. And what the guy is wearing, so you can see the original Sankofa design on the t-shirt. So this is how the original Sankofa design looks like. The original Sankofa symbol looks like. I chose that because in my research, I'm also looking at the connections between Ghana and Scotland, which most people I understand are not aware of, because for instance, what you call a Church of Scotland here, we call Presbyterian in Ghana. They set up schools, and we still use the basic structures that was set up centuries ago, still in Ghana, having boys and girls school, still holding discipline and structures in our education system. We are still using the way the courts dress as the colonial masters left us. We're still using, wearing the white wig and the gowns, and we still dress in tweed from Scotland. We still dress in tweed in the heat in Ghana, still dressing in tweed as police officers. So you can imagine we still have the colonial things in us. So I'm looking at that by bringing these two cultures together and trying to create a conversation around these topics. The Kente that the guy is wearing is a Ghana, so just as we have Adinkra symbols, we have Ewe symbols and we have Ghana symbols. The symbols in the one that the guy is wearing is Anchele, or we call it Achele, or the scientists will say Achele or something. It says in this, the translation for the Ghana one says, the people you meet climbing up are the same people you meet climbing down. So be careful the way you treat people. The second symbol in there says, if you don't work, the hands that does not work does not eat. So as a man, you need to work, or as a human being, you need to work to provide for yourself. So I thought the design in there is more masculine. So I used that Kente design plus the Adinkra symbol on top for the guy. So it is just talking about how migration influences spaces when we move. Because I can tell you that when George, what's his name, George McLean came to Ghana to be our governor, he also brought his influences from Scotland to Ghana. And he's still buried in the Cape Coast Castle with his wife, Elizabeth. So that's the kind of a connection we still have with Scotland. And I know a lot of people are not aware of this bit of history across borders as well.
I'm going to move us on to our next image. Sorry, I'm a wee bit slow at passing this on, which was, is just looking to bring me down to, ask you about how you came to be working with Hunterian. Obviously you've got a lot else on and you're working on a huge research project alongside your actual fashion design as well. How was it that you kind of came to be working with our collections?
So as part of my PhD scholarship, which is a James McQueen Smith Scholarship Fund. Part of the scholarship gives us a mentoring and internship, but the first phase is a mentoring project. And I was paired with a Hunterian museum. And I was paired with Ruth Fletcher. But it happens that one of my supervisors, because I'm dealing in textiles and symbols, had arranged that I meet with Dr. Andy Mills on Adinkra symbols that actually originally I was supposed to meet him on the Kente that you guys have in storage. But it turned out that there were more Adinkra symbols, and then there were more gold weight and then gold dust boxes in storage. So when we got there, I realized that the Kente pieces that they have is the ones that are on the table. It's not a massive collection, but there were massive collection of Adinkra symbols and then a whole lot of the gold dust boxes. So we started collaborating on me working with Andy as part of my mentoring to look at some of the symbols. And I realized that some of the symbols, Adinkra symbols there, are very old. That I know there are, the last time I spoke with somebody from Ghana who also have some authority on Adinkra symbols, they said there are thousands of Adinkra symbols. Some we only know about a few. And I realized that some of the ones that I was seeing at the museum are not ones that I know. So I've sent them on for authentication, and then I will continue with my work. So that's how I came about working with Andy at the Hunterian Museum, looking at some of the gold dust and looking at the symbols, Adinkra symbols there, and putting names and meanings to it. So when you go on the website and you click on it, you still have, they are not just going to be remaining as numbers, but numbers and names and meaning to whatever they are. That's how I came about working with through the mentoring project.
And so that's an ongoing process, isn't it, at the moment, that you're attributing like the proper names to these objects and not just like the catalogue, number that we currently have.
Yeah.
Were there any ones that particularly stood out for you, or that felt particularly special to you, or any favorites really?
Well, all the Adinkra symbols are my favorite because they represent something different at a point in time. So I was excited seeing the symbols, and they are not just symbols, they were actually stamps, like ready to go stamps, like the way they use them in Bonre to print the Adinkra symbols on the fabrics. And I realized that some of like in Chin Chim, for instance, nowadays they only do one in Chin Chim. You only find several in Chin Chim on one disc from the tie and dye print, batik printers. because they are doing mass production. And some of the designs there I saw were something that I've seen before, but the name was not coming. I couldn't find the names to it, but I know I've seen them somewhere before. And seeing them there, I realized that there's still a lot to learn from my own culture as a Ghanaian about the symbols that I saw there. And also, the fascinating thing is that part of my research is looking at symbols across Scotland and Ghana. And it turned out to be that I found some of the Celtic symbols that you can find in the Ghanaian, like the Solomon's knot. You can find it in the Ghanaian. We call it Nyansapo. We call it Impatapo. You can find Nyansapo. They call it sailor's knot, but the design is kind of different. And the same Solomon's knot, it also looks like a design that is called Obinima Obichre. It's another, it looks like an educative, it's a symbol that represents education. It's kind of, and I'm more and more discovering, I know that the Celtic symbol cuts across it's Irish and Scottish, and even beyond Scotland. So I am looking at whether what the symbols I'm looking at, does it only relate to Scotland or Ireland, or even did it come with the Vikings to end up here? So I'm looking at so many facets of the same thing, and I'm still realizing that there are some of the Adinkra symbols that I'm looking that look familiar or similar to the Celtic symbols. Are slight variations, and I'm looking at the meaning. That does it have the same meaning as it holds in Adinkra symbols? And when did they cross over? When did the idea of Adinkra symbol crossing over to Ghana and Celtic symbol crossing over to, or Adinkra symbol crossing over from Ghana to Scotland and crossing over from Scotland to Ghana? Because I know that in the 14th, 16th, 15th centuries, we had this Scottish trading companies trading in cotton, trading in gold dust and all that from across the continent. So my wish is to find out when these textile designs, symbols crossed over or shared between these two countries.
I've just got a few more images here. I believe this is one of the stamps, isn't it, that you found in the Hunterian collection?
Yes, it says human beings will die and still money will remain. So basically telling you that you don't have to chase money, you have to value people around you, because you will die today. Whatever money you make will remain, and you will never take it wherever you're going after you are dead. So value the relationship you have more, value the people around you. Yes, money is important, but don't make it overly important over people around you.
I mean, when I picked that image, I obviously didn't know what it meant, but that's beautiful. So I'm glad I selected that one. And I think we'll maybe, finish up here, because I'm realizing, sorry, Naa Densua, I've kept you running over a bit. I would though like to, open up the floor if anyone else has any questions that they would like to ask.
Hi, Naa Densua, good to see you.
Hello.
I wanted to ask you about the kilt in your design that we saw earlier that was displayed in the Ark, and whether or not there's a Ghanaian equivalent of that, and does it look similar to the Scottish kilt? If not, is this just something that you've used the patterns on the fabrics to make a Scottish kilt? So
I have not seen kilts worn in Ghana because we don't have kilts in Ghana. So like I was saying, it is me using the Kente to make kilts as a connection between two cultures. The Kente fabric, using Kente fabric and the meaning in the Kente fabric to make a kilt, in a Scottish kilt, to tell a story or how my culture has led me to influence in my own small way the culture of wearing of Kente, using Kente in a different way in Scotland, because this place is too cold for us to be wearing the Kente the way we traditionally wear it. So, and also to make it relevant in the culture here, it's okay to make it. Traditionally, it's not okay, but fashion has made it okay. Fashion like that has made it okay to wear Kente in this manner, like using Kente. Traditionally, we will not use Kente to make kilt. You use tartan to make kilt, but just trying to make a statement or create a conversation around this.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. I think there's other questions, so I'll just mute again.
Thank you. Thanks, Ruth. We've got a question here from, I think Susan's got a question. Susan, are you able to just take yourself off mute?
Hopefully the dog will be quiet long enough. Yeah, hi, that's really interesting to see the work that you're doing. Textiles, African textiles are my thing as well, based on just outside Liverpool. But I was just, one of the things that's always interested me is this sort of similarity between Kente and tartan. And in, is that something, I just wonder, is that something that you're looking at in terms of the sort of meanings and colours, and the fact this is, the kilt is also a single wrap garment?
Yeah, that's exactly what, that's one of the things I'm looking at, the similarities and the way Kente is similar to the tartan. Even though the colors are vivid, our colors are so bright than the ones that the tartans. The weave, that is what drew me to looking at these two. How did how because we use the similar loom. I was in the north part of Scotland, northern part of Scotland, at a center where they were using a similar loom, like the Kente loom, to weave tartan. And I was sitting there wondering, so how did the loom become, how did it happen? How did they arrive in Ghana? Or how did it come from Ghana to this place? How come they are using similar techniques to weave? That's them weaving manual, doing the manual weaving like we do in Ghana. But you see, the fabric I've used there are factory made from China. Can you imagine? It's an embroidery thing. So if you made a mistake and you pull one string, everything unravels. That is why I am not, it's okay to use it the way I've used it, because the original Kente, you can't use it like it will even make the dummy fall, because it's so heavy. It's very heavy. So that's what drew me into looking at the colors, because I'm looking at the meaning of the colors that I use as well. I'm looking at finally the tartan I will choose as my final presentation in my thesis. We'll also be looking at colors from that side, and also be looking at the weave, look at how similar it is to the ones I will choose. I'm actually looking at the Ewe Kente and not the Asante Kente. So the Ewe Kente is closer in colors to tartan. So I'm looking at that aspect of Kente. That is exactly what drew me to look at the similarities in there. Thank you so much for the question.
No, my father was brought up in Scotland, okay. But I'm the keeper of a family collection that goes down to Victorian times. Okay. So it's my passion. So,
Nice meeting you.
yeah.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Susan, and thanks so much for joining us today. Are the symbols that are adopted to maintain harmony and agreement also used to express disagreement or difference, especially in the Ghanaian diaspora?
So the reason why it is calling for peace and harmony is because there is discord already. There must be a dispute, or there must be some conflict. That is why the symbol was created at that time, to create peace and harmony. So most of the time, these things are done for solutions. So, and most of these things are also used as staff, like chief staffs or family. The way we use, the way Scotland have clan symbols. In Ghana, we also have the clan system, like we call it chieftaincy. So every community has its own chief, and then we have our paramount chief. So each community, if each chief or each household has its own symbol, and some of these Adinkra symbols are used in that manner. So you can have a symbol that says, so for instance, if a chief is summoning you to their palace, and it depends on the staff that is brought to your door. It could be a symbol of peace and harmony on it, so you know that you're not in trouble, or you are being summoned to come to a peaceful negotiation. If you see a sword coming to your house on the staff, and the sword is looking downwards, it means they came in peace. Or if it is looking the other way around, it means you are being summoned for something serious, so you have to obey. So it depends on how you look at the symbol, but most of the ones that have peace and harmony and stuff in it are always meant for peace, or bring discussion towards peace.
Thank you. We've got another question about from Chiara, who would like to know more about the ways you would like to present these works in a museum context, where ideally the post-colonial perspective is taken into account. I mean, you'd already have a display, obviously, like in Kelvingrove, but are there other ways of kind of displaying certain works that you've thought about?
I came from Brazil recently, from Rio, where I did an installation of another gown, also talking about community. So on my project, the MIDEQ project, I translate the research that fits a particular community and their issues. So whatever the findings that they have, I take it and put texture to it, or take it and make it real by creating stuff. So I made a gown, and it's not a kilt. In Scotland's contest, I made a kilt and the gown. But in the Rio contest, I did this gown that represents the favelas in Brazil. And then a gents we call Batakari in Ghana, which also has a similar design that also represent the favelas, because it's a mixture of communities. So whatever story, and so these are installations that are done in places across the ponds. There are other installations also coming up. There will be one in Costa Rica. It could also be how do you call it? A quilt displaying ideas. It's not, most of the work I have is not always a gown. So if you go to the modern, is it the Goma, and you're going to their art spaces, on their wall, you see my work on the wall. It's like it says Glasgow Modern Gallery or something, Modern Arts Gallery in the city center. If you're going up to their workshop space, on their wall, you see that I have some displays there as well on the wall. Some works I did there of Adinkra symbols. I use Adinkra symbols to tell a story on a frame. So it depends on the context which I'm working, and what for instance, like the workshop that is coming up on Saturday next week, at the Hunterium, at the Kelvin Hall, after everything, whatever we produce can be used as an art piece for the museum or wherever. So it depends on the context in which I'm working. But for the installation of, sometimes I'm commissioned, like the one in the Kelvingrove, for instance, it's a commissioned work, but also they commissioned me, but gave me permission to tell my own story as a Ghanaian living in Scotland. So it depends on the context I'm working in, and who is commissioning me to do a piece for their museum.
Question here, a comment actually as well. So I'm interested in when you were talking about the link between Scotland and Ghana. I do the same with my designs when it comes to linking my British and Jamaican Trinidadian heritage to create vibrant prints. And I'm currently linking the connection with Jamaica and Scotland tartan fabrics. Is there any research you have done in connection with Ghana and Jamaica?
No, I have not yet. I'm saying not yet because I'm still looking at, so as a Ghanaian, I'm looking at where the influences are coming from. Going to Rio, I saw a lot of connections from Brazil to Ghana that I never knew about. But I just realized that there's a whole lot, way down to even the food we eat, the way we eat our food, the way we make them. And it makes you see how slavery and people being sent across because of the slave trade has changed or has widened the scope of West African lifestyle in other places. That is, so now I have been called back. That is something that I'm also going to look at, the connections in terms of dance, textile, symbols across, because there was a place, wherever you go, you see Adinkra symbols. And I was like, oh, what is Adinkra symbols doing here? You look around and you see all these things. So I'm looking at places. So one day, I may be looking at the connections between Ghana and Jamaica. And when that time happens, I would like to go on the journey with her if she's available to do that.